Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make improvements in your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon, presented by 17 Hats. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. This continues our month of episodes curated by ballooncoach.com. Each one of these guests was invited on by Joette because they have some connection to Balloon Boss Mastermind or Balloon Boss Summit. And Allyson Valentine is this week's guest. She is the owner of Pop Studio Balloons out in Connecticut. And she is sharing her journey from starting balloons as a side hustle as a full-time teacher, and she has since grown to full-time business ownership. She has left her job teaching. She has actually brought her husband on to work full-time in the business, and he has left his job. And most importantly, she's talking about designing a business that works for her family. So not just about how big and how fast can they grow, but how can they intentionally design a business around their 3 kids and life as a mom and not wanting to, quit and burn out. So she has intentionally taken steps to grow a business that works for her, and she is sharing all of those details in this week's episode. So before we get into this week's episode with Allyson, let's take a quick break and head over to the UGlue hotline for some great advice that sticks, and then we are talking about insane business growth. Welcome to the UGlue hotline, where we discuss great advice that sticks, brought to you by Pro Tapes. If you have a question or some great advice to share, click the link in the show notes to call in and leave a voicemail.
Hi, Sarah. This is Brianna from Glitz and Garlands. I'm located in North New Jersey. I absolutely love your podcast. I listen to it weekly. And one of the tips I wanted to share is that if you have a last-minute client and they're looking for an install and you don't have the balloons available, and maybe you just don't want to pay that extra shipping charge, go onto Amazon and look up Party Woo or House of Party balloons. They are tested and true. They are great balloons. They are not your typical Amazon balloons. They're great quality. They're lasting. They're just like any other good brands out there. And they will ship next day right through Amazon. So that's my biggest tip. I hope you guys do use them and try them out on your own at home. They're absolutely great. And Sarah, thank you again. You guys have a great day. Bye.
Pro Tapes is a leading manufacturer of specialty tape products like Pro Gaff, Pro Artist Tape, and our favorite balloon tape, UGlue, which helps you create amazing balloon arrangements and decorations in less time. You can save 5% on UGlue when you buy directly from Having a Party using code BRIGHT at checkout. All right, welcome to this episode. Allyson, you are the owner of Pop Studio, and I'm so excited to hear about your massive growth, not only growth for growth's sake, but growth for the sake of kind of designing a life that works for you. I love everything we talked about before we started recording. I'm so excited to kind of hear your story. But let's start with a basic intro. Who are you? Where are you? And tell us about your business.
Sure thing. So I am Allyson Valentine. I am the owner of Pop Studio. I am located in Fairfield, Connecticut. And I am entering just now, as of June, my 5th year in business. And it is my 4th year full-time.
My gosh, that seems so long ago that I met you.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yep. And we met back at, Float.
So we met at Float. I had a booth. Ooh, I was nervous. I had a booth for the podcast because it was kind of new.
It looked great. It was best.
Yeah. I met you and you were like brand new. And you were a teacher, so I automatically was like, she's my people, because I used to be a teacher. And you were still teaching at the time.
Yep.
And I don't know. I remember you. Like, I remember that moment. And since then, it's fun that like you're still doing balloons. You've grown so much. Your life has changed. Yes. At that time, actually, I was kitty corner from Joette at Balloon Coach, and I was like, you should go talk to her. And you did.
Absolutely.
And that led to a lot of your early success.
It did. Yes. Yeah. So when we met, instantly, like the teacher connection to me was big. Like, hey, that's my people. Let me go see.
Was I still No, I wasn't still teaching, but I was still
You,
working.
I think you were
I was
still
at the college because I've only
teaching.
been
You were at
full
the
time for
college.
2 years. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So when we met there, and then you introduced me to Joette and Balloon Coach, and I joined from there, which has been great, connecting with, other balloon businesses and resources. So
Cool.
yeah,
So you started, I mean, I'm assuming you started like all of us, like in your house,
I
trying to get
did.
jobs where you can, you buy a bag of balloons and it just kind of goes from there. But
I did.
but you've grown a lot. So kind of
Yes.
give us the overview of where you were and kind of where you are today.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I started just kind of playing with balloons, and like a lot of people too. I started playing with balloons actually before my kids were born. My first kind of interaction with balloons was when I was pregnant with my son, and I wanted a giant confetti balloon for
Mm,
my baby shower, like for the photo op.
right.
So I didn't know where to find them around me. So I made one, and it was terrible, all the confetti. I look back at the pictures and it's all in the bottom. It's just
Yeah.
hanging out there in the bottom. And from
That's
there,
still how mine looks. So, don't feel bad.
right? It's tricky. They're really hard. So I did that, and then I made things kind of here and there for my son, for my niece, just for family things. And then when COVID hit, so I was teaching at the time, and I had my son and I had twin girls. And my twins turned one in April, the beginning of April. So like right after that COVID shutdown in March, their birthday was coming up. And in my head, I was going to plan this big like blowout birthday party. And I had actually gotten on our town. We have like a free cycle page where people give away stuff.
Mhm.
I got one of the pink balloon inflators from
Oh,
someone
nice.
on there, thinking, hey, I'm just going to make, balloons for my girl's big blowout birthday party. And I was like, oh no, now I have to push it back a couple weeks. Well, no, that, didn't happen.
Right.
But we did like a Zoom cake smash. And I had, from teaching from like a science experiment or something, like, I don't know, 30 balloons in my house. And I inflated them. And this is like embarrassing. I actually sewed them. Like I took basically
People
like a
do
needle
that.
and
People
thread,
do that.
and I put them on the, fishing wire. I don't even remember what I used. And it was behind them in their like Zoom party. And, I was just trying to make the best of like celebrating my two
Yeah.
girls, while everything was shut down. But from there, I had friends whose kids' birthdays were coming up, and they were like, can you make me something? Can you make me something? And was, and they weren't good, but they were fun. And I was dropping them on friends' doors and running away. And then from them posting pictures and, just sharing these like, kind of silly little things that I was making, other people started reaching out.
Yeah.
So I remember like the first person who asked me that I didn't know, it was someone I didn't know. She was like, I saw pictures somebody posted on Facebook. Can I hire you to make something for my daughter? And I was like, I'd love to make something for your daughter, but like, you can't pay me because I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, all right, well, can I give you a bottle of wine? And I was like, yes, you absolutely can, because I'm stuck home with three little kids teaching. And
Oh, that's
yeah,
funny.
definitely. So it started as like just this side thing. And then just for fun and like for like, COVID happiness. And then I started to do a little bit of research kind of into the balloon industry. And
Hmm.
I have family in the Chicago area. And my sister-in-law was like, Al, this is a thing. Like, this is a thing
Chicago was
in
crazy during COVID.
crazy. And so she would send me different companies like, this is a thing. You should do this. You should
Ooh, who
do
did she
this.
send you? Do you remember? Do you remember who came
It
up?
was Paris
312.
312
Mm-hmm.
was one. I think it was Luft was
Mm-hmm.
doing like bursts, and there was a couple more that
Yeah.
I can't remember
Yeah, those are like Chicago,
off the top
Chicago.
of my head. And then actually my brother-in-law, so her husband, knew about Balloons by Tommy because he actually worked in the sports world, and he was like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, they come in with their big pole and they put things up
Oh,
to the
yeah.
ceiling. So like they knew, and they were like, you should look into this. Like this, it's a thing.
That's so funny
So
because I feel like, I'm not like overly into the community over competition thing. Like I agree with it, but I think some
right.
people take it too far and they think that means like we all share everything for free.
Right.
And I disagree with that. But I think this is the perfect example of where community over competition
Mhm.
is true, because it's like someone who isn't your competition on the other side of the country was
Right.
doing great work, and that brought you great work.
Yeah.
So I think
Yep.
like the better we all do, the better we all do, if that
Yep.
makes
Yep.
sense.
Absolutely. And just the exposure of the industry, like
Mm-hmm.
to my family in, a totally different state. And so that kind of inspired me to like see, hey, what is this world about? And maybe it's something I've always had like a side hustle. Like even when I was teaching full time, I was tutoring for
Okay.
a while. Like I used to decorate custom cupcakes, which is like a whole nother thing, and I would never do that again. Um,
Same.
and
I'm the same. I like always
so
just like, well, there's more time in the day. What else can
yeah,
I do?
yeah. What else can I
What
do?
other money can I make? Yeah.
Absolutely, that's me too. So just from there, I started, kind of seeing like, what is this industry and what is it about? And in COVID, I was, teaching during the day, and then I was, putting my kids to bed. And then at night, I would go down into like this teeny tiny space in my basement. And I would like go on to like Q Corner, and, I would look up people on Instagram doing, whatever tutorials I could find. Um, and I did, purchased some classes, and I would like sit down in my basement and make these things. And,
Yeah.
I gave them away first on Facebook, and then it was like the car parade graduation season
Yeah.
in June. And so I bought, literally the only supplies I bought were the school colors in my town. And I have a picture of it. It's like 3 little rows of balloon bags, and I sold like mirror clusters basically for people to put on their cars for car parades.
Okay.
Was like the first thing that I like promoted and sold. And because I had a connection to the school. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my first
How are you selling? I always love like pulling out any tips that I can. So like if someone's in your similar spot, obviously the parade phase is
Mhm.
over, but
Right.
like just at the very beginning, because you seem like you have this great memory of how it all started.
Yeah.
How were you actually like selling these things? Like were people Venmoing you money, or like did you hustle and
Yes.
set up like a Wix website? Like how were you
I
actually selling?
Yep. So what I did was I first posted on kind of like my personal, like Facebook and Instagram, because I just wasn't really sure what I was looking for out
Right.
of
You weren't
this.
like, I'm launching a full-on company.
Right, right. No. And I posted on my personal, Facebook and Instagram. I had a friend reach out to me who was like, "Hey, I'm going to make you a logo." And I was like, "Awesome, that sounds great." She made me a logo. I put together a super quick website. I learned really quickly that it was hard to manage information without a process.
Yeah.
So I very quickly learned
I
that.
felt
So
like COVID was actually even harder because it was like all last minute. Like everyone ordered these party
yes.
polls like 3 days in advance,
Yeah.
and I'd have like 10 a day. It was the most
Yep.
organized I ever had to be.
Yes. And I quickly moved away. Like I never really took, or in the beginning I did a little bit, took orders through like Instagram, but I would always direct people to like email or a Google form. I had like I forget what my basic website was, what I started with, but some sort of form, because I
Yeah.
needed the information somewhere.
It's because you're a
And
teacher. It's because you're a teacher.
it's
Like I swear to
totally
God, it's that training, it's that upbringing. That's why I
yeah.
will always feel like a teacher, even though I did it for 5 years. But like,
Right, right.
I taught at a college, or I worked at a college for 10 years, and I don't feel like that's my identity. I feel like being a teacher because
Yes.
like you're trained to constantly be managing 25
Hmm.
kids at a
Hmm.
time, back to back
Yep.
to back, 9 hours a day. And it's like
Yep.
the thought of not having a process for like
Yeah.
literally how you go to the bathroom, like
Yes.
that has to
Yes.
be a process. It's like that's unthinkable as a teacher. You
Right.
have to have every single thing figured out. And I think that's
Yes.
like the greatest strength that I just kind of like you said, it just
Hmm.
had when I started my business, because I
Yeah.
knew it would be a mess without it.
Yep. Yep. Totally. 100%. And just having those plans and processes in place is just like so ingrained in what
Hmm.
I do. So I did that fairly quickly. Um, but like it was, a super basic website. It was like a Google form. It was Venmo. And what I was doing during COVID, like everybody else, was it was small drop off
Yeah.
pieces. I did a lot of them,
Yeah.
but they were small things, like a $50 small, table bouquet or something like that.
But I remember at the
Or
beginning, $50 felt like I was getting away with murder. I'm like, they just
absolutely.
paid
Yeah.
me $50 for this?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yes.
insane.
Yes, yes. So that's where it started, was with those graduation car parades, and then it went into like smaller birthday arrangements. Hey, we're celebrating a fourth birthday and we just want something fun. And at that time, I was kind of like just looking at all the things out there. So I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, I can make that. Yes, I can make that. Yes, I can make that. Um, and then kind of quickly realized too that I needed to like pare back or scale back like
Sure.
what I was offering, because I was like, I have to focus on, can I make this and can I make it well?
Mm-hmm.
Because now people want to pay for it.
Yeah.
So kind of just like exploring those skills and learning. So I did spend a good amount of time classes, any virtual class like I could
Can you,
find.
okay, because I feel like you have like this crazy memory from when you started.
I
Do
do,
you
yeah.
remember what any of those classes were? You mentioned Q
Yep.
Corner. I think they're such a good resource. Now it's
Yes.
that balloon show, but their old
Yes.
videos are still up there and
Yep.
they're so good.
Totally. Those were great. And I used a lot of I found a lot of people through Instagram. And then one that I did, I actually took a day off from work that day teaching.
It's
And
okay.
I
They're not listening
did
and you quit. You don't have to be.
it doesn't matter now. But I remember being like, I'm going to take a day off and I'm going to do this virtual class. It was with balloon therapy. It was their like balloon
Oh
con,
yeah, yeah.
which was, I really liked that. They had a lot of like business information too, and a lot of creative
I want to have them on the
information.
podcast. How did you
Yeah,
did you like the training?
I did. I did. I liked it a lot. And it was really my first like experience. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, then I went to float after
Cool.
that.
Okay.
So, yep,
So the
those
timing was
were,
good too. That
it was
happened to
good.
me also. It just happened to be float like
Yeah.
6 months after I started doing balloons, and they
Yes.
happened to have a wait list, and I happened to get in. I think
Yep.
if I hadn't gone to float that first year, I might have lost my
Yep.
interest. But
Yes.
then when I went to float, I was like, holy cow, like it opened up so much.
Yeah.
So I just happened to hit the timing of these conventions
Yes.
like right away, and that
I did
really
too.
fueled me.
I did too. And I remember with the balloon con, I was like, oh, they did have an in-person at the time. They had an in-person and a virtual. And I was like, I can't get there. It's just too much. So I'm going to do the virtual. And then I, learned about flow either before or after, and was like, I'm going to really try. I want to go to this. I want to
Hmm.
like experience this. And also, prior to me being a teacher, I worked in conferences and trade shows. So my first career out of college was in events.
Gotcha.
So I was like, okay, I know what these are fun. So
Yeah.
I wanted to go and I wanted to like, just experience things in person.
And you just went
And
alone?
I went alone. I went alone. I did have a friend. So my really good friend Jen, who owns Westchester Pop Stars, she's, about 45 minutes from me. We had connected on Instagram like through COVID, and we're like Instagram friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna go to Float. You should come to Float too. So she did, and we actually like met in person
Oh, that makes it a
there.
lot better. I
It
remember
made
my first one. I didn't know anyone. And
Yep,
I was such a wallflower. No one except for my
totally.
roommate even remembers me being there.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. And I remember getting there and being by myself. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And the classes hadn't quite started yet. So I went up and I said to someone, like, I'm here by myself. I'm not sure. What should I do? And they were like, go find somebody who's making balloons and ask them if they need help.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like,
That's really good
okay,
advice.
sure. So I walked over, and it was actually to Tommy and Scott's team. They were building that fire tunnel, and like I didn't really know who they were,
Yeah.
at the time. And I was like, "Hey, do you guys need help with something?" And they're
That's
like, "Yeah,
amazing.
totally. Come build this tunnel." And I got to work on that big fire tunnel with them, which was really great. And
Oh,
then
that's really cool.
just helping there. I was talking to other people that we were working with. Um, and yeah, just kind of started to like make those connections to people,
That's
which
so funny.
was
That's like,
helpful.
I was just walking down the street and I asked Picasso if he needed help painting.
Basically, right now I'm like, oh my God.
That's so cool. It's better when you're not starstruck, when you know no one and you're just
Right,
like, oh, I had
right,
no idea.
right,
You're like
right. Like
the
I knew of
team.
their business, but like didn't personally know who I was walking over to,
Yeah,
and was
that's
just like, hey, do you
amazing.
guys want help? And then I went and saw my family members because it was in Chicago. I went to
Hmm.
see them after. And I was like, I built this cool tunnel with this business Balloons by Tommy. And they were like, oh, yes. Like my non-balloon family
That's awesome.
new of their business. So,
That's
yeah.
amazing. Well, cool. Let's take a quick break and then
Yep.
let's pick up right at Float because that's where
Perfect.
you got connected with Balloon Coach. I want to talk about Joette
Yes.
for just a second and then
Sure thing.
tons of growth since then, obviously. So we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Are you ready to take your balloon business to the next level? Look no further than Having a Party Wholesale, your ultimate destination for all things balloons. Having a Party Wholesale is on the cutting edge of new products that will wow your clients from top brands like Tuftex, Jamar, Anagram, Ellie's, Sempertex, Premium Conwin, and introducing Brookloon, a new balloon line created by the Having a Party family. They've got the widest selection to fuel your creativity. Join the successful league of professional balloon artists who shop at havingaparty.com. All right, welcome back. So I love that you remember all of those specifics. I'm 10 years in and I feel like it's gotten fuzzy. You know, like I so
Yes.
freshly remember being like new and scared and confused, but
Yep.
I don't always
Yep.
remember like how did I get my first client and how did I get connected with this person? So it's cool that you have all those memories.
Mhm.
But before the break, we left off at Float.
Yes.
You got connected with some friends. You got some hands-on experience. Let's talk about Balloon Coach for just a second. Joette curated this month of guests. So she chose
Yes.
you as someone
I'm so
to
honored.
kind of represent her and someone who has grown tremendously,
Mhm.
not only through Balloon Boss Mastermind, but that's definitely a component. So can you just like chat about how you
Totally.
got connected with that
Yep.
and how it kind of helped you early on in your business?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So you were the one who connected me to Joette and to Balloon Coach. And when I came over to your booth, I, knew of your podcast before going to Float and knew you were a teacher. So I was like, I'm going to go talk to her. I want to say hi. I want to introduce myself. We have this like teaching balloon connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I got your planner that you had. And then we started talking and you said you should go over and meet Joette. She's a really great resource. It's, a program that I'm involved in and it's really helpful for, starting business, growing a business and maintaining a business. So I did, I went over and I met with Joette at her booth. And she told me kind of about the Balloon Coach program, Mastermind, and Summit. And at that time, Summit wasn't something that I was able to do. But when I got home, I was like, you know what, I'm going to join this and see. I want to connect with other balloon businesses. And I had done some other kind of like business groups,
Mm-hmm.
like locally in my area, which were great too. So I'm totally a fan of like business groups, networking, group coaching, those types of things. And I was excited that this one was balloon business specific.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was great to, jump onto, a call or jump onto Facebook and be like, hey, can anybody, help me out with this? And the response I've gotten I feel like anytime I ask a question, you get, either a few different opinions or you get someone who's like, call me. I'll help
I
you.
know there are so many people
Like,
that are so, I'm like, why are you
yeah,
taking the time to help me? You're amazing.
yeah, yeah. My one of my favorite ones was I was having a lot of trouble pricing out like marquees and I just couldn't like wrap my head around it. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember posting on the Facebook group being like, can somebody help me with this? And Misty from Balloons by Misty was like, call me. And I was
Yeah.
like, what? Oh my God, she's just gonna like talk me
I
through
know. I'm
this.
always like,
And
no, I'm scared to talk on the
yeah,
phone.
yeah. No, so I did, and she was so helpful, and just giving that information and like walking me through, and saying this is what I do. And I also love that you can get, like one person's like, call me, I'll walk you through it. This is something I do all the time. Or you can get different kind of views and opinions, like, hey, how would you handle this situation? And I like that it's a smaller group because I know there's also kind of like Facebook groups that are, bigger balloon groups too.
Yeah, but they're also
Um,
free. That's the thing.
right.
I think being a paid member
Yes,
is good. I mean, I think people are
I
more
agree.
willing to help because they're also contributing. I think when it's these free groups, I'm like, I'm not super inclined to like teach people with
Right.
no skin in the game how to do
Right.
everything, you know?
Right. Right. Or some of the questions are like,
Where do you buy
where do
balloons?
you buy
Yeah.
balloons?
Yeah. And you're just
So
like, yeah.
yeah, and I like that. Yeah, they're more, it's more targeted information. It's more, and I also like that there's a range of people too. And even honestly, just this Tuesday, so what, 3 days ago, I was with a group of, oh my gosh, how many of us were there? 7 different businesses from the area. We went to help Bobby and Pat. They had an event and they
I heard about it. I heard it was fun.
Yeah. So they needed extra hands. So she put a Facebook post up, and in like 24 hours had 6 or 7 businesses that were like, I'm available and I'll come help you.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, so one of my good friends is Jamie Frick, who was up there. And she even said, she texted we have like a group chat, and she was like, here are my 3 big takeaways from this event. And it was just cool that it's like, she learned 3 things just from helping, like just from being there, like, oh, stacking the bouquets this way. This thick ribbon looks a lot better. Oh, these are Qualitex, not Metallic. Look at the different, like, just the information you get from working with balloon people is so valuable. That's why I love in-person events. I love hands-on, because I pick up all these little tips that people aren't even meaning to teach. Like you just kind of see.
Watching.
Yeah, exactly.
You're watching someone, and Jamie and I worked together. We did an organic piece, and we're saying like, how do you do this? How do you do this? Okay, how do you handle this? Just chatting.
Yeah. Love it.
General business, knowledge. Let's go back and forth. Like, how would you handle this situation? So
yeah, so where have you grown since Float then? That was 4 years ago?
That was, so I've done Float twice.
Okay.
So just went to the most recent Float. I also did a balloon build too. And then I attended the summit in last November.
Yes. And I should say real quick, this episode's coming out in September. Tickets are still on sale for Summit this year. It's in November, but you can still snag a ticket if you're interested in going. And there will be a link in the show notes for all that information.
Yep.
Sidebar. Right. And it's one of my favorite weeks of the year, honestly. It's where I get all my business stuff like kind of like ready for the next year. I like get in the zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you are still like a one-woman show at this point. And now you are like... you are cooking with gas. You have grown a lot. So what has been your trajectory kind of since then?
Yep. So kind of the growth, when I was at that Float, I was not teaching anymore at that time, but I did do one year. I did a year of teaching full time, and then the balloon business in the evenings and on weekends. And then what happened from there is that was like the COVID virtual, teaching year, which was wild. I don't want to go back to that ever again. So after that, I had my kids. So I had 3 little kids, and I needed 3 kids to go to daycare for me to continue teaching. And just the reality of like childcare.
Honestly, what does that cost? Like,
it was more than I made as a teacher.
Yeah.
Like significantly more than I made. So I was debating, do I go back to teaching? And, what are we going to do here? And my husband and I had to have like a real conversation, like, what is our plan? And we decided like, it just did not make sense for me to continue teaching anymore. And we looked at my balloon business that had been growing, in COVID. So those small growths. And I was like, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this can bring in what I brought in as a teacher. That was my first goal.
Yeah.
Like, if I stop teaching, can I bring in the monthly, money that I brought in as a teacher? So that was kind of my first goal. And, we focused on that, and I did. I hit that fairly quickly, which was great. I mean, it really, truly wasn't a lot. So
yeah, well, right. But I mean, but when you're teacher. I've always been in education. I was a teacher, and then I worked at a college. My husband was a pastor and now works for a university. Like, what I think is a lot of money is not what normal people think is a lot of money. I think I think it's almost an advantage, because when you are in that education world, it's like your bar is just lower in terms of what you need to live on.
Totally.
You just have never had money.
Right. And I was like, let me just hit this. Like, let me see if I can hit this. And I did. And then I was like, all right, now let me see if I can make this, if I can go higher. Like, what can I do? And actually another thing too, and is on, a couple of the like mastermind, calls, people share numbers. That's another thing. People are open to sharing their numbers. Whereas sometimes, like in certain settings, it's, like taboo, I guess, whatever, to share,
I love talking about money. I'm like,
I think it's great. I think it helps other people.
Call back to when I started. It was the parades, profits, and promotions, I think. 3 Ps. and it was the Pride Parade, and it was hosted by Joette with Balloons by Tommy, which is why we keep referencing these people. Like they're very intertwined with the start of my business. And at that event, people were sharing numbers, and I was brand freaking new. Like I was brand new. And if you had asked me how much you could make full time doing balloons, I would have guessed like $15,000. Like I had no idea. So when they're like, "Oh, we do like $1 million," I was like, "You're joking.
You're
Like you are
joking.
joking. We're talking about balloons here." But had people not shared these crazy numbers, it was amazing, kind
100%.
of the mindset shift that I had. I was like, well, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, it's not like they're lying. So I think it's
100%.
super important, because I would have never in a million years thought that anyone could sell $100,000 in balloons, let alone me, let alone fly past that. Like, there's just, I had no idea.
Yep. So that's where I was too. Like just hearing what other people were doing. And I was like, I think I can do that too. And let me see. And I remember saying to my husband, like, I'm going to push it this month and see what I can do. And I just kind of kept setting goals, and I always kind of set like a big goal, but then like my, like stepping stones to get there, just so I don't like overwhelm myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, no, I want to go big, but there's a process and a journey to get there. So I kept setting those like goals. So I set kind of the money goal. What did I want to bring in? And then things started to get bigger. I was working out of my house down in my basement, and a teeny tiny little space. And, I was using my personal car to go make deliveries. At this point, then people were kind of back, having events, even if they were just like outside. I started to do installs. Even in COVID, I wasn't installing. I was just dropping off, small things. Then events kind of came back, and I was doing installs and seeing, okay, this is where the bigger money is coming in. So what do I need to do to like get myself up to speed on how to, install balloons now? How do I create framing, and how do I, do all these additional pieces to offer more products and make, more money? So then it got to the point where, I was dropping things off using my personal car, which had 3 car seats in it.
Yeah.
Full size car seats, not 3 boosters, 3 like full on car seats.
There's no folding those seats down.
There's no folding things down. So I would take all 3 car seats out, put them on my driveway, fill the car with balloons, and then go do whatever I needed to do. And then from there, it got to the point where I was like, we need a van.
Yeah.
We have to get a vehicle. So I ended up getting a van. And then I really started, like, the things were coming in, and what I was noticing was that I had these systems in place, like we talked about earlier, for gathering information. Like I had a Google form, I had an email, but I was like, I want to make this into like a legit business. So we did the van, I did branding. I had someone come in and do a whole like branding and website for me, set all that up. I set up a CRM. So I just started to like then focus in on like, hey, people want these balloons. Now I need to basically like button up my process here.
Yeah. What CRM do you use? I'm curious.
I use HoneyBook.
HoneyBook. Okay.
HoneyBook. Yeah. Which
it works for you?
It works great for me.
Good.
That's another thing too. I hired out for someone to set that up for me because it was actually the funny story. So the reason I got a lot of these things set up is that I had a corporate client, actually brand client, reach out to me, and they were like, we want to work with you. We want you to do this install, and we have to pay by credit card. And I was like, oh shoot.
Right. Exactly. You figure it out as you need to. Yeah.
So, oh man, I don't want to look like, total rookie here. Let me figure out. So I was like, boom, 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 HoneyBook, set it up so fast so that I could, do this job.
Right.
And then from there, I looked at it and I was like, I could do this, but I can't do it well. And it's going to take me too long to figure this out. So I hired someone who came in, built my whole HoneyBook for me.
Smart.
And I feel like that honestly was like a huge tipping point for my business, just having that process, because I had done the branding and website before. So like the look was there. I had the look I wanted, but I didn't have the functionality.
Right. So they submitted the form and it was just an email, which does you like no good.
it was in Google, and I was, a Google form, and I was like, oh, which is totally fine, right? If that's the way that like works for you, great.
Okay,
But I
it
wanted
is.
to,
I'm accommodating and yes, I think if you're starting out, whatever works is great.
hmm
But I do
hmm
think that there's people who's like, well, I started with a Google form and it works,
yeah,
so I'm never going to grow from there. And I use a different system than you.
yeah,
Obviously, I use 17 Hats, you use
yep,
HoneyBook, but like there are so many resources out there that are so
yeah,
much better than whatever
yes,
you started on. It's just like you just said, you
totally,
started with Venmo, but you get to a
right,
point where like you need to process credit cards if you're going to work with these
yes,
corporate clients. So
yes,
I think sometimes we can be too accommodating and
totally, yeah,
too like stuck in our ways that we're actually
yep,
limiting ourselves. So
right.
yeah, I think a CRM is a must.
It was huge. And I was finding that when I was doing it like manually through Google Forms and email, it was taking me too long. I
Yeah,
was losing
100%.
business because I couldn't blast off the things that I needed to. So people were inquiring, and then it would take me like a couple days to get back, or I'd be like, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I forgot to respond to that."
Or like
Or I
I would
didn't
make
star it.
mistakes. I would like go to
Yes.
type their information into an invoice or something and like I would type the address wrong or I would
Yeah.
lose the information. Like
Yep.
and removing that whole step so like what they type just automatically goes onto the invoice, like even that is
Right.
huge.
Right. And also I was like, you know what? I had people, clients started with me in COVID. So lower price drop off things. Now I was at a point where I was asking people, I was sending off much higher quotes.
Hmm.
And I wanted to back that up. Like, you're not just going to Venmo me from my, Google form, and I'm asking you to pay me, $2,000 for
Right.
balloons. So I wanted it to all fit. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
if you're
proportionately.
asking people to spend that money, then it needs to be something
I
like
agree.
legit.
I think that's a good way to
Um,
think about it.
so I was looking at that, and now, I mean, I can book someone, like if they are at their computer and I am at my computer and both parties are responsive, I can have someone like inquired, quoted, booked in like probably 15 minutes.
Yeah. If they know
Just
what they want,
if they know what they want,
which
right?
never
If the
happens.
stars align, like if someone comes in and says, I need a 10-foot garland, we're putting it here,
Yeah.
boom, 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 that,
I know. I'm the worst because I feel like people are always talking about upselling. And I'm
right?
like, if I have a client that comes in though and says they know, like, I want a blue and pink arch, I'm just like,
Yeah,
boom,
yeah,
blue and pink arch.
yeah,
I'm not upselling. I just want this done. And I never
right,
upsell because I'm like,
right.
faster is
I
better.
I really don't either. And sometimes I tell people I'm like the opposite. Like people will be like, I want this. And I'm like, that's not a great idea. And that is a
I
more expensive
know.
thing, but you don't need that. Or not that you don't need that. This is not going to work the best for your event.
I
And
know. I had
here's
a guy who
why.
was like, I have no budget. And he meant it. Like he had hired
Right.
this really big band from the city and like brought them
Uh,
up. Like I knew it was a big
yeah.
event. And he
Yeah.
was like, no budget. Sky's the
Right.
limit. And I quoted him like $2,000.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I think this is enough, honestly. I
Right.
don't think you need more.
Right. Right. That's me too. But I also think that's another like kind of piece that I focus on is just like the client relationships too. Building those and like having repeat clients come back too is huge. It's a huge piece of my business
Yeah, me
is
too.
return clients. And I like look, I went in because part of the CRMs you can like run your reports. So I did. I ran a report to just
Nice.
actually like see what these numbers were. And I just did a short little time period. So like this event season, right? So March, April, May of this year was like a boom in
Nice.
orders and growth for my business. So I ran that, and 61% of my orders in that time period, the March to May this year, 61% was repeat clients.
I am the same way. I
Yep.
feel like this year I've worked, well, maybe not this year because I had a baby. So it's kind of
Right,
weird. But
right.
like I do feel like I've made the same or more than last
Yeah,
year. And I
yeah.
feel like I'm doing way less work. And I think it's
Yes.
because of those repeat customers because
Yep.
the back and forth is way less because
It's way
they
less.
either want the same thing or they just
Yeah.
trust you and don't
They
really
just trust
care.
you. I have clients
So
who
it's
say like,
just,
here's the budget, our vibe, go.
yeah, the
Like,
best is corporate, same as last year.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, don't mind if I
yep,
do. And I just
yep.
duplicate the invoice. That's
Same,
the best.
It's the best. And then I also did look at, this was like, I found this interesting too. And this was, Honeybook was able to tell me this also, that my repeat clients they make up my highest lead source. So when I look at my leads
Oh,
categorized,
yeah.
and people have to click that. So sometimes someone who's a returning client might click Instagram, it's just
Sure.
like, they might not click the exact category. But for the people that do tell me that they are return clients, that population is my highest lead category that comes in.
That's smart. Okay. And so
Yep.
anyone who's listening who isn't sure what we're talking about, on your lead capture form, a question that you should have is, how did you hear about us? And this is a tip from my friend Nicole, who does all my techie stuff. She runs Let Nicole Help, and she does 17 hat setups. But she said it should always be a drop-down menu. You don't want to have it be like a fill-in question, because then you'll have to sort through all of that, because someone might say online, someone else might say social media, and someone else might say Instagram. Those are all the same thing, So you want to limit, and you want to say like repeat customer, Instagram, Facebook, word of mouth. Like you want to give them options, because then, like Allyson just said, you can run this report and know where your stuff is coming from. So if you're spending, $2,000 a month on Google and no one's finding you on Google, that's a problem. I don't think that would happen. But like there's certain things too that maybe you're doing some sort of a free, for trade, for promotion. And if nobody is finding you through that free giveaway, then like stop doing it. Right. So that's really smart. That's a good report to be able to run.
Yeah. And I love seeing that. And the other piece that the report was also able to tell me was that they have the highest conversion rate from lead to booking, which, makes sense.
Ooh, that's a cool report. I like that.
So they're my highest lead source, my highest, source of people that are coming in are returning clients. They also have the highest conversion rate from inquiring to booking.
Yeah, I would think it's like 99% because they already know they want to work with you.
Yes. But funny, my husband and I actually ended up having a conversation about this, because I was like, sometimes I have people who are coming back to me from that beginning in COVID, where I was dropping off $50 things. And now I'm saying to them, my minimum for me to come out is like $300.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I had no idea.
Oh, okay. I got that.
So, but the cool thing is that in building those client relationships, I have return clients, and they might not always book, and that's okay. We have the relationship where they can reach out and be like, hey, Al, we want to quote on XYZ. We're thinking of doing this. And I'm like, here you go. Let me know. Like, and if they don't want to do it, it's okay.
Yeah.
And they might come back for something else.
And you know what? Like, I am that client. I feel like I disagree. People are always like, you're not your ideal client. I feel like I kind of am, in the sense where like, I have an example. There's a charcuterie girl who did these little charcuterie boxes. And she does them for like Easter or like Mother's Day. And they're like the $50 little box size. And for me, it's an easy thing that like, hey, I'll bring the charcuterie to Thanksgiving because I don't have to do anything. And I'm the $50 client, right? But she does these beautiful spreads, like, where they like fill the entire counter, and like, it's like butcher paper, and it's like stunning. Those are like $4,000. And I am never going to be the one to do that for like my kid's birthday party. But like, but I'm still that $50 client all these years later. And like, maybe I would do that for like a rehearsal dinner or like a wedding, or like, I mean, that's so far off for me, but like, I'm hosting this retreat next week. I would love to one day have like this huge spread. So I think just because you have these lower spend clients and you're keeping them happy, it doesn't mean that like they're not going to spend a lot. It might just be a once in a lifetime splurge for them.
Yes, totally. And I also, another thing that I focus on is offering, the majority of my business is installs, higher priced installs. But I have maintained like my grab and go, pickup items. I have that menu, and it's in my thing. When anybody inquires, it says our installs typically start in this range. If your budget is below this, click here and see our options for pickup.
Yeah, I also have that on my info sheet, what's it called? My inquiry form. So I just ask, and it's kind of just to pump the brakes again, because a lot of times people go right to the contact page and they haven't looked at anything. Yes. So I ask, like, what are you interested in? And it's like a grab and go garland for $100.
Yeah.
A menu item, with $400 minimum, or something custom for $1,000 and above. Right. And a lot of people do click on the $100 grab and go item, even though there's a whole other page and order form for that. sometimes they miss it. And it keeps
Right.
me from like proposing all these things, knowing that like their budget's
Right.
$100.
Right. Exactly. It's part of that like process, and it still makes things accessible to your clients, but it also helps you know, hey, I'm not going to put together this proposal for,
Mm-hmm.
$1,500 when your budget's $100.
And you know what?
And
I
then,
think what I just explained there, I have this little analogy that I just thought of. I flew to Disney
yep.
by myself, which I fly by myself often, but I'm always
Yeah.
out of the Milwaukee airport, which is like teeny tiny.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a direct flight, so I flew out of O'Hare, which is this
Oh
huge
yeah.
international
Huge. We're
airport.
there
And
and
like,
there all the time. Yeah.
yeah, you have to like you park and you take a bus to the tram, you take a tram to the
Yes.
gate, and you take a
I
gate to
just
the
did that
blah.
with my 3 kids. It was like,
Yeah, I'm like my armpits are sweating. I'm like, just oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But like they had all these signs everywhere. Even my phone in the United app, it's like basically telling me where to go, like a
yeah.
GPS.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not just like, oh, I told you one time to get on the tram and you missed it. It's like
Right.
everywhere. And then it's
Everywhere.
like it's said in different ways, it's like
Yeah.
two terminals, and then it's like to the United Gate, to the
Yes.
security check. Like those are all the same thing,
Yep.
but they're just
Yep.
trying to get you to read something. So I
Yes.
feel like I've tried to make my process almost like redundant in that sense, so they can
Same.
like
See it.
correct. Like I'm
Yeah.
just building this little
Yep.
GPS to try to get them where I
Yep.
want them to go. And
Totally.
sometimes they still end up in a Facebook,
Right.
message. Like
Right.
you can do whatever you want, but
Absolutely. I know that it's hard to like set those boundaries because people
mhm.
will reach out on Instagram like, hey, how much does this cost? And I am so conscious of like, I will not give pricing through social media because I don't know any of the logistics of your event.
Exactly.
I could tell you that's, $500, but then you're 2 hours away. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, or it might not work. So I always direct people. I'm like, you have to go to my website. Like, thank you so much for reaching out. Would love to work with you. Please go here. And if people question me, I'm very like upfront and being like, I will lose track of your
Yes.
order.
It's
If
me.
you
It's
don't
not
go
you.
through
Like I
here,
will screw it up.
it will not exist to me. Like
Well,
I
and
want it
now
to, I
I
want to
have a
remember.
I have a virtual assistant. So I get to say like, oh, fill this out. And then my assistant will get it on the calendar right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I should have been saying that for years. If you don't
Yes.
have a virtual assistant, just
Yes.
lie and say that,
Totally.
because then they're almost like, oh, fancy. Like I
Yeah,
didn't
mine
know
says
you had an assistant, but it gets them
right.
to do the right thing. Cause
Yes.
it's kind of like if you DM'd your dentist for an appointment. It's
Right.
like they're not going to
What do
put you
you
on the
think about
schedule.
this tooth?
Yeah. Like,
Like,
hey, you think you could get me in? I'm pretty sure I have a cavity. It's like, what are you talking
can I
about?
send you a picture? Like, no. Right. So like those processes, I think those are like huge. And just like setting that up because I also want like a big thing for me too is like just building those client relationships, but also like the client experience too, which
Hmm.
comes from my background when I worked in events. I worked in experiential events. So I was doing brand events. I did conferences and trade shows and brand events after that. So it was like bringing a brand or a product to consumers through an experience,
Yeah.
which stuck with me in teaching. I taught very hands-on so that my students would learn by like doing and learn by, the experience. I remember I had to teach them, about like the Earth's, rotation and revolution, and we would like move around the room and
Yeah. Yeah.
like parents would joke, they'd be like, "You're Miss Frizzle." And I'd be
Oh, Miss
like,
Frizzle.
right? And I'd be like, but they remember it. They
Yeah.
remember it. So I kind of bring that too into like this business, like just those client relationships, but also the client experience. So like when they go to my website, like what do they see? What's their first impression? When they, click on, your Instagram, what's the first impression that they're getting? What are they seeing and what is their experience from like that initial, kind of just exploring before they even
Hmm.
reach out, their initial like exposure through then inquiring, booking, and having an event.
Love it.
So that's something too. And then like another thing also when we were talking about like the grab and goes and making things accessible to people, something else that was hard for me to learn was like that I needed to focus the things that I offer.
Okay. Say more.
Because like, when you see people offering all sorts of decor and
Yes.
and rentals and a really good example I feel like is like the bubble house, right? The
Hmm.
bubble house came out and it was like so magical. And, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Should I get a bubble house? And like inside, I really wanted to just like click order on one.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm like, hold up, what goes into this?
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
like a
like
whole other business.
whole other
I
thing.
found that out with the marquees. I spent a long
Yeah.
time deciding whether or not I wanted those.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike them, but they were a
Right.
different business. They just
Yeah.
work together with balloons, but like
Right.
anything that's other than balloons is hard. It's different.
Yeah. It is. And for me, like I get I'm like a chipmunk. I'm like, oh my God, something new and shiny. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
right. But I have to really make an effort to be like, does that work for me and my business right now? Maybe it's something that's down the line, but even the marquees, like you said, I do a ton of work with our local alphabet, and we have a really amazing working relationship where we just have like such a streamlined process.
Yeah.
But our clients, I don't book their work and they don't book my work. Clients have to book two separate businesses and then we handle everything. Like we coordinate behind the scenes. But I've had clients say to me, you should get marquees. And I'm like, I don't I don't want to. It doesn't work for me. I
Right.
would then need storage. I would need, staff. I
Yep.
would need space. I know exactly what can fit in my van for like a day. And typically there's no space for marquees.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would need someone to go pick it up. And like it's not something that works for me now. Those like really any rentals. I have a few rental things, but like I don't really promote them
Yeah.
um, because I'm trying to stay focused on like what
Yeah,
I'm
I think that's a really
good
good point
at.
too, because it's not only like market what sells, it's like market what works for your life,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yes,
the circle arch frame that
right,
might sell, but you have to go back for it every single
right,
time and it's a pain in the butt. So like if you can get
totally.
just as much money doing garlands
Yep,
on a disposable frame or
yeah,
something, that's
yes.
maybe the better option for you.
Or
Or
sometimes I offer them locally. Like if someone's close enough to me and I'm like, oh, okay, it'll only take me 15 minutes to go
yeah.
back and go get it. Cool. Here's an option for you. But if you have to figure in, traffic, the mileage,
Well,
getting there,
especially where
the
you are,
event's
right?
over.
Like,
Yeah, it's been brutal. But those things, even for a while, like the jumbo marquees, the balloon like
mm-hmm.
displays, those were a big seller for me in COVID. And then I had to stop offering them because I was doing then more installs and I had no space for them. I didn't have any
Yeah.
space for a standing like display.
I
I had
stopped
space for
offering them
bags,
because
bags of balloons.
I brought the wrong number. It
Oh
was
no,
someone's
so you're
birthday and I brought the
traumatized.
wrong
You're
number and I
like,
was
oh
like,
shoot,
"Oh, I was like, that's it. I'm done.
I'm
I'm
done.
retiring
I'm
from."
done. Yeah. Even the mosaics. I have sold them, but I don't think you can even find a picture of a mosaic on my website or Instagram. Like if somebody asks for them, I might quote them and I'll probably
Yeah.
quote it pretty high.
Well, then it also depends on what
It's
else
just
you
not
have
a
going
strength of
on.
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just and I think it's hard to like to stay focused in in those things. It is for me. It's hard to keep that focus and be like, no, I love that, but it does not work for me
What
in
are
my
you selling then?
business.
What are your big sellers?
My big sellers are the organic garlands are
Mhm.
probably my number one. And then followed by columns. I do a ton of columns. And I love columns. I love
Yeah,
classic
same.
columns.
They're the best.
And then, kind of the classic work, the arches, columns, and organic are really my top. And now I've been doing more helium
Same,
too.
same. We are the same.
Yeah,
This is exactly my order.
yeah,
It's like helium kind of as an add-on, but like I'm
yes,
not afraid of it anymore.
yeah,
And
right.
sometimes it really is just the easiest tool. It's like,
Yep,
oh, there's no framework, there's no
right,
real
right.
anything to it. Like you just
Yes.
bring it.
And it's
Yeah,
focused. Like I'm not a bouquet delivery business. That's not a service I offer
right.
because it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me now. But I do a lot of like helium jumbos or, in
Hmm.
the pools, around spaces, centerpieces. So those are kind of big, the
What can I ask
jumbo
what you
size.
price your helium jumbos at? I'm always just curious. That feels like a
Oh,
baseline item.
well, I have actually a calculator based on what my helium costs.
Oh, interesting. So it moves.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it moves. And I honestly have to like look. I'm so bad at remembering numbers in my head. And I
No, that's
also have
fine.
people who are like, can you give me a quote right now? And I'm like, I have to look.
Yeah. Oh,
But
no,
I did
same.
create for myself like a calculator of what it costs me. But I off the top of my head, for full helium, like if I filled a jumbo with full helium, I think it's just $25 just in helium.
Oh, I thought
like
you were going to say
was
you charge $25. And I was like,
no,
I'm sorry, what?
no.
Yeah,
The
it's a lot.
cost of just the
I
helium.
never do. I do 60/40 100% of the
Yes.
time.
Yep.
Which again,
So
if people are listening and don't know what that is, it's a special valve you can get that it basically thins your helium with air because with those jumbos, you don't
yeah,
need that much
no,
helium. Like it's a lot. So you
no.
can essentially water it down.
Yep. We just did, and now I'm saying we. So I went from I for
I
so
know,
long
right?
because,
Actually, hang on. I'm going to cut you off.
okay. Yeah.
Let's take a break because we got
Yes.
to talk about the we and your growth.
Yes,
Okay.
totally.
We'll be right back.
Are you driving to do an installation right now? Have you ever had that experience of while you're driving, your phone rings and it's a great potential customer, but you're on the middle of the freeway and you can't take the details of the order down, and so you're really worried you're going to forget everything? Well, there's a really great way to solve this. It's by having an answering service. If you'd like to learn more solutions to the balloon decor business problems you face, then come on over to balloonsuite.com. We have a blog full of expertise, and we offer packages that help you get your sales on track to reach your goals. Come on over, learn more, and you can subscribe at balloonsuite.com.
All right. Welcome back. We had to like literally pump the brakes because we're just we're just talking. But okay, so we were talking, you kept saying we and you stopped
Yes,
yourself and we never even got to the we. So
totally.
you were still kind of working by yourself. Business is picking up. You replaced your teacher salary. I'm
Yes.
assuming that's when you left your job.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then, oh, and you mentioned your van,
Yes. Got the
but
van.
more growth. What else has happened?
More growth. So, basically, I've been for the last, 4 years, a one-woman show, um, on my own. I, have some really amazing balloon friends in the area who we will help each other out when we need, an extra hand on installs or jobs or passing something, off to somebody else. But it has been just me doing, like many people, everything from
Hmm.
the sales, the quotes, the, site visits if they're needed, the installs, the prep, like literally just me. So recently though, that has changed. And my husband, Mike, just this in March, left his full-time job, to come work alongside of me and to kind of see, where this business is going and growing.
That's amazing. What did he
Yeah.
do before and kind of what does he do now? What's his responsibility?
So he is a journalist and he worked in TV production. So he was a like news producer, which he always like says I say that like not in the appropriate, like way for for that, job. But he was producing news segments like from our basement during COVID. And
Oh,
then
wow.
he went back actually. So part of the growth too is seeing like not just how my business is growing, but like how my family is growing
Yeah.
and what is working for us. So we this spring like had to sit down and we were in like survival mode
Hmm.
truly from COVID up until like kind of even still we're like just coming out of it. But he was working and commuting into New York, every day. I was running this business and also taking care of our 3 kiddos. So we were like, we're kind of miserable. Like everything felt hard
Hmm.
because we didn't have there was never any, can't even think of the word. Like it was go, go, go all the time at such a high level of stress
I have that
that,
too. And I mean, this year just is an outlier because I had a baby and like that ruins
right,
everything. I mean, not ruins
right,
everything,
God,
but like
no.
it ruins your body,
It
but
throws
like
a wrench.
it makes it really hard. And
It's really hard.
there were times
Yeah.
where I would just like sit down and like hold my chest and I was like, I think I'm going to have a mental breakdown. Like, I
Yeah.
think I am going to have a heart attack and die
Yeah.
because of the plate spinning. It was just like, I never felt like I was off. Like I always felt
Right.
like, okay, I finished responding to those
On.
emails. Now I have two other email addresses I have to
Yes.
log into. And then I have to do podcast stuff and balloon stuff and manage this
Yes.
school stuff. And like, it was so much.
It's so much. And like, that's exactly the situation that I was in. And we basically watched this business grow over. So it just hit, starting my 5th year. So 4 years. So we've had 4 years to look at this like business growth. And like, it went from like, side hustle, extra money to like, okay, this surpassed my teaching salary, to like, okay, on my own, just me, surpassed 6 figures in
Mm-hmm.
sales. So that was like our point where we were like, all right, like, let's see really what we can do, but this is not manageable
Right.
for our family. Like, this business is getting big. His job was, high stress. He was gone long hours. Our kids were, with babysitters. And so we were like, we need to make some sort of change here. And we were kind of like, you know what, this business, like, we have an opportunity to see where this business goes. Like, we never, ever, ever thought we were going to be small business owners.
Yeah.
Like, that was my husband will be like, this blows my mind that like you created this business and it just keeps growing.
Yeah.
So we looked at, all sorts of things. It wasn't just a business decision. It was a business, personal, family, us individually, our kids, like all the things. And we decided that it made the most sense for him to leave his job and to come on board with me.
That's scary and
And
exciting.
so scary.
But
And
like, what? Does it save him 2 hours a day just in commuting?
so his commute was basically it takes 2 hours each way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was like 4 hours in commuting. It was gone. And
So that's like
we,
80 hours a month just in
yeah,
getting to your
yeah,
job.
yeah. And in high stress, he covered business news. So even now with like election coming up, like he was like, I am really glad I am not doing this
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
right. That's a perfect time to
So
get out of there.
perfect time. So he got out, and we set it as like, listen, I need the help. And I
Mhm.
was turning away so much business because I couldn't take on the orders. I could not fulfill the orders.
Mhm.
Like I was going to have to hire other people. And I was like, I can't wrap my head around that. And maybe that would have been the better business decision for like him to continue getting his salary and me to hire. But we looked at it as a business and family decision.
Yeah.
And we were like, we have this opportunity for this business has grown. It contributes to our family. It certainly doesn't. I want to be like very transparent here. My business is not like covering his salary. Like what
Sure.
he made in his corporate job, we're not there.
But
You
also
know,
he's not sitting on a train or on a bus or in a car for
exactly.
20 hours a
Yes,
month. I mean, that's such
right.
a waste of life.
Totally. So it was all of those things like together. And I was like, come work with me. And people were like, he's gonna go work for you? And I was like, no, he's not working for me. I don't want it to be like that. I don't want to be his boss. He's working with me.
Yeah.
So I was like, very much like, you
I
are
love that.
working
So what does he do? What is
with
he
me.
like? What is he naturally good at? Like, where does he fit in?
So I don't think he's touched a balloon, but like
Honestly,
he,
I didn't, I assumed like if my
right,
husband came to work with me, he would not be the balloon person.
right. No, he's not the balloon person. He is basically taking over the business and financial side of
Oh,
everything.
nice.
So in the growth that I've had over the last 4 years, it was like, oh shoot, this is a real business. Like I need to do real business things, like get an accountant, like, look at reports and file thing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Just like upping that from side hustle, part-time thing to like, this is an actual
I know it's
business.
so hard too, because when you start, like, it's like 100% profit. I mean, you're like 99%
Yeah,
profit. It's like for every $200 in balloons you sell,
right.
you're buying like a bag of balloons.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
so lucrative. But the more you grow, the more that graph kind of levels
Yes,
off in terms of profitability,
right.
because that you are dealing with scary amounts of
Yeah,
money that you don't want to screw up. And now you need
right.
an accountant, and then you need QuickBooks, and then you need a CRM, and then you need a van. And it's like
Yes,
it's this teeter totter I always talk about, that it's like, where can you be like maximum
yeah,
profitability without then jumping to like the
right.
next level where all of a sudden you're like, now I need
Yeah. Now I
way more
need
income to
these
support this.
things. And you hit a point where like you have to spend more money to make money.
Yes,
You have to
100%.
spend it. And for a while my like overhead was so low, but now that is higher also. So I needed someone to like manage that. And we were like, listen, we have this opportunity to see if this works. We know it works with just me. Like it works and it helps our family. It supports our family. It's growing.
Hmm.
Let's see if it has both of us on board. where it can go. And I told him too, I was like, if this is a temporary thing, totally fine. If we decide this doesn't work in 6 months, no worries. Like it may not work. I
Right.
don't know. We still don't know. But like let's give it a shot. It had enough like potential for us to really give it our best try.
That's awesome.
So he's on board with me now. He's handling, but he does installs. He actually is like training with me on installs because we've been doing like a lot of ceilings and pools where I need a second set of hands. And he's great at, like loading and unloading the van.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
carries the tanks. But his primary focus right now is like all of the business back end stuff.
Yeah.
That I'd be like, oh no, I'm not going to do that.
So is it just you two? Do you have any other, I mean, you have like an accountant, you said, but
Yes.
do you have anyone coming to inflate for you? Do you have anyone doing teardowns? Like, do you have
No,
anyone else? Okay.
I don't. Like I think I said before, I have other balloon businesses in the
Helpers,
area
yeah.
that can come in. Sometimes we trade hours or we'll say like, hey, can I pay you to come help me, with this install or whatever. But no, it's really me. I had a client, like a new client at one point who was like, I sent her the reminder for install and I said, I'll be there at X time. She goes, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be you.
Yeah, I know. I
And
always
was
think
like,
it's weird if it's not me. And I'm like, wait, they don't
but I was like,
expect me.
I
Yeah.
was like, it's just me.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only option.
I know. And they're like, can you tell your team? And I'm like, I will. Yes. But now I kind of do have a team, but I still do all the installs.
Right.
Because for me,
Yes.
that's the hardest part to outsource. And it's actually the part
Yes.
I like enjoy. Like I want
Yeah.
my weekends back to some degree, but like
Right.
I think there's so much other stuff that's easier to outsource before the installs. That's like the
Yes.
last thing that's gonna go for me.
Yep. That's what I did was outsourcing like the accounting, then bringing my husband on to handle like the business
Mhm.
pieces of it. Like I need to hire some additional help with inflating and things. And I have people like ready to be hired, but
Inflating
it's
is
like,
where it's at. I was
yeah.
so scared to hire an inflator because I was like, I don't know how to even get the things out of my head. But
Right.
sitting down and coming up with like formulas and then training someone to inflate, it's like overnight, I got like 5 hours of my week back. Like it was amazing. It was just, even if they did it wrong, it was still better.
Right.
It was
Right.
still
That's
like, okay, fixing this still is half the time
Yes.
than inflating it all myself.
Because
Because there's just inflating is just time. There's no shortcut.
Totally.
It's just time.
Totally. So I actually like instead of, and you have to think through these things. Like I haven't been able to make all my business decisions at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like planning out like what's next, like what do I think is next? And it like became, the van was one. And then I did in October signed a lease on a space.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. So in the fall, moved out of my basement into a space. I also couldn't hire people before that because I was in my basement. And
Yes.
I'm not at a point yet. Like I do need to bring on someone for inflating, but that is hopefully to come in the, very near future. But now that I have the space and can do that, but also now I can prep much further in advance.
Yes.
And go, get things inflated for the week and they're all just stacked up.
Well, I had a, change in my business. My inflating, and my only employee is sick. She's out. She had open heart surgery and she's out for months. So I had to bring someone else in to help. And she actually has her own business, but it's much smaller. So she's happy to come and inflate. And because of her schedule, she comes on Mondays, whereas Kate used to come on like Wednesdays. But oh my gosh, that Monday is so much nicer because then we're prepped for like almost the entire week.
Yes.
But I'm also tripping over balloons all the time now because it's not like inflate the job, get it out the door. It's like inflate 5 jobs and like hope there's room. So I am feeling the crunch now. It's amazing how like these little shifts will change your entire business, and what felt good now feels crowded and I'm out of space. But yeah, you don't make it all. You don't sit down one day and like most people, maybe some people do, but I don't know of many balloon people who like got a loan and rented a space, bought a van, hired a staff. Like that's not, I mean, that's not how most people do it. So I think you just kind of have to course correct as you go.
Totally. And I'm like a planner, like we, talked about like the teaching thing. And like, I wish I was more of like spontaneous, but I'm not. I truly am like a planner and I'm an overthinker. So I'll be like, well, here's my plan, but here's also plan like B, plan C, plan D, and like the, most terrible like thing happens, that plan too.
Yeah. But
So,
sometimes worst case scenario is a good thing to weigh. Like, not like you want to plan for the worst all the time,
right,
but like you said,
right.
worst case scenario, if your business fails, you go get a
Yeah,
job. Like,
right,
that's the worst case scenario. You go
right.
get the job you used to have that was
Right.
perfectly fine.
That's I'm like, I can always go back to teaching. Do I
Right.
want to? No, I don't. I'm like past that now, but it's there. And I said to
Yes.
my husband, come work with me and let's see how this goes. Our worst case scenario is one or both of us goes back to work.
I know.
Like,
That's how I was so scared to leave my job too. And I was like, this isn't my dream job. And actually,
right.
like, I kind of really hate it when I think about it. And I'm
Yeah.
commuting an hour. So, like, yes, it's comfortable. Yes, it's pretty cushy, but like, it's not perfect. So, like, I can always go
Right.
back and find a different job. And,
Yep.
a year
Yep.
and a half has flown by and I'm never going back.
Right. That's exactly where I'm at too. But just planning those things out. And I am always like, I don't like surprises. I don't like surprises. So I'm always like, here's the plan. Here's what I think is going to happen. And like, here are the steps that I think are going to be necessary to get
Okay. So,
there.
people who are listening who are, in their Allison 4 years ago,
Mhm.
what, like, it's very intimidating
Mm.
when you think about starting from nothing and then growing to, not a huge business. That's where they always
Right.
lost me. I was like, I never want the 10 employees and the 5
Right.
vans and the warehouse. Like, I don't want that. But what's like, you're kind of in a good medium. I think you and I
Yeah.
are kind of in a similar, like, we're juggling kids. This is not the
Yes.
time we want to like really crank it up on the business. We need it to work with our life.
Yep.
What are your clear action steps? Like, what would you tell people who are still working out of their basement, buying a bag or
Yeah.
two of balloons at a time?
That's how I start, literally, those like first school colors. But I think just taking it in steps, and I will push, like I will I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Like I will do it the hard way until I literally can't do it anymore. Like
Yes.
my car, like taking the 3 car seats out of my Traverse. Like I would do that until I was like, I can't do this
But I think that's
anymore.
good. And I think that's why you're so profitable. I'm the
Yeah.
same way. And it's like,
Yep.
I really need to push the limits before I
Yes.
take that next step.
That's me too. I need to really, really see that like it makes sense. And sometimes I'll even come up with like a tester, I'll buy like pop drops, right? The New Year's pop drops, with the little balloons in. I made those by hand for 2 years.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
I was like, okay, now it's time to buy a stuffer. I
Yeah.
don't really recommend doing those by hand. Get the stuffer. But
Yeah.
like
100%.
that's the type of thing. So for me, it's been a journey and like lots of stepping stones to get there. And it's hard, I think, sometimes to see, especially like social media, right? Like big, big installs, big clients, big things, but you have to just really focus on what works for you, what works for your business at that time.
Hmm.
Like it may change. It
Yeah.
could change in a month. It could change in 6 months. It could change in a year. But what helps me is being like, does this work for me, my business, and my family right now?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I make those decisions. Even my van I got is a passenger van because I needed a vehicle that my kids could go in. I couldn't get a cargo van. I pick those kids up from school pretty frequently in that van, and they still think it's cool, which is great. So
Yeah.
I
I have
know in a
seats in the back
couple
of
of
mine
years they're
too.
going to be
Yep.
like, oh God, mom, not the van.
Yeah, mine's a passenger van, like a 12 passenger,
Yeah.
transit.
I have the
And we took all the
10.
seats
Yep.
off and like
Yep.
I need that extra seat in a pinch. And I
Yes.
definitely have used it. I have definitely thrown a baby in there before.
Right.
Like
Right.
you have to.
That's my kid. They're in there with balloons. I'm like, are you
I
back
know. I'm
there?
like, can you breathe?
Yeah. So I think just really, really focusing on that, what works for you, and like not getting distracted or discouraged by other people and their success. But also, I think too, it helps to connect with people that are like in a similar business kind of phase. Um, because then you're bouncing ideas off each other. Oh, you did that, I can do that
I
too.
agree. I
And even
agree.
the businesses that are much bigger, those are great inspiration goals, but really just taking that and seeing, is that something that works for me before you make those like huge decisions? That's what helped.
I agree.
That's
All right, let's
helpful.
take one final break, and then I have some fun questions just to end on. Hey, listeners, before we wrap up today's episode, let's talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Balloon Guild. Do you ever see amazing balloon decor online and wonder, how did they make that? The Balloon Guild is revolutionizing the industry by standardizing recipes, SOPs, and offering unparalleled training. Their mission? To elevate balloon artists worldwide, ensuring efficiency, profitability, and unparalleled professionalism. For business owners and their teams, the Balloon Guild isn't just a resource, it's a game changer for growth and development. For me, it's been the ultimate shortcut in finally getting things out of my head and onto paper, so I'm not making things up on the fly, and so my team can work together to create consistent, fast decor. Visit their platform today at theballoonguild.com or by using the link in the show notes. New recipes and resources are released every month. All right, welcome back. What a fun interview. I've loved catching up with you. Let's just end on some light questions.
Sure thing.
Usually the last question is, what's some business advice that you would offer? But I feel like you just answered that. I think I think your last answer of just focusing on what works best for you, I think that's such great advice to end on. So the other two questions are, where's your favorite place to vacation?
Oh my gosh. Well, truly, I haven't really taken many vacations in the most recent years, but I will say, my family and I, we just had an amazing trip out to Bainbridge Island, in Washington. It's like right off of Seattle. And it was like the most magical time we had.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah,
cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like a little island off of Seattle. We have family out there. And they were, so kind to invite me and my husband and my 3 crazy children to go stay for a week, and all of my family went. And my son picked berries and he, baked them into a pie, and then we ate the pie. It's
my gosh, how wholesome.
Yeah, it was like family summer camp, which is so different from like my life here. So we just had a blast. Out there. It's right on the water, and like anything on the beach, I love too. So.
Cool. All right. And then last question, and this is because I love shopping.
Yes.
What is your favorite material possession that you've purchased in the last 6 months? So it could be like a TikTok purchase or something you grabbed on Amazon, like totally unrelated to business or balloons, something that you like.
Oh my gosh, something. I always go kid things. I'm like the worst.
No, share it. I love it.
I don't buy things for myself. I buy things, for my kids. And this is like so silly, and we just got it, but it's already been like a little life-changing mom. It was a total mom win. I got this little cutter that makes you can make your own Uncrustable sandwiches.
Oh, we have one of those as well.
Oh, that's been my most recent win.
Instead of spending $2 a sandwich, you can make your own.
Exactly. But also because I have one who hates the crust, and I have 3, and nobody likes the same thing, and it changes every day. So that's been
so
my
funny.
Most
we use ours every single day. Every single day.
Yeah. So my Uncrustable maker.
Oh, I love it.
Totally not fun, and
Oh, that's so funny. Well, that's kind of a weird way to end the episode, because usually I have the business advice, but I love it. I love any tips, any mom hacks, because I think that's kind of the whole gist of this episode is you have to do whatever helps you survive. Running a business and being a mom.
It's survival. I am trying to think if there's anything balloon specific. Oh, I did just invest in the gigantic Magpole.
Oh, do you like it?
I love it. I did try, I tried to go the budget route, and I got, this is actually a really, really good tip too. I'll just share this if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I tried to go the budget route, and sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't. And I bought the telescoping pole from Amazon. And what I realized was, because I'm short, I can't reach where the
the twisty thing is
come out.
Not
the twisty thing, but where you need to click the things to make it grow. I can't reach that from standing on the ground. So it defeats the whole purpose of me standing on the ground and raising things up.
Yeah.
So when I did then, I booked a job, a ceiling, and I bought the legit Magpole, and it has been life-changing for ceilings. So that's my balloon purchase.
That's good. That's a good recommendation, because those are expensive. So glad you like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I can, hang balloons on your ceiling and hand you an Uncrustable on the way out.
You will probably have to do that one day. I mean, that's not out of the
Right.
realm of possibility. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been so nice to
Thanks,
catch
Sarah.
up. And
Been great.
where can people find you if they want to follow along?
You can find me. So my website is popstudioballoons.com. And I'm also on Instagram, same handle, Pop Studio Balloons.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you.
great
Thanks
chatting.
for having me.
Thanks for listening. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light. Our presenting sponsor is 17 Hats, the CRM I use to cut the chaos and manage my entire balloon business. From the lead capture form on my website to workflows and email templates, invoicing and grab-and-go garland automated bookings, it's all powered by 17 Hats, the best customer relationship management system for balloon businesses. There's even a 50% off coupon code waiting for you in the show notes wherever you're listening. I'll see you next week in another episode.